Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. Today I'll be speaking with convicted murderer Christopher Bennett. Christopher Bennett, an 18-year-old from Craigsville, Virginia, was sentenced to 1,800 years in prison after he shot and killed his stepfather, Vincent McDorman, on July 25, 2003. Bennett claimed that he discovered McDorman molesting his 6-year-old half-sister, Victoria, and acted in defense of her. At the time, Bennett was given the choice between facing the death penalty or accepting a plea deal that resulted in 3 consecutive life sentences, totaling 1,800 years. He accepted the plea deal, which resulted in charges of capital murder, breaking and entering with a deadly weapon, and robbery. The case garnered significant attention due to the severity of Bennett's sentence and the circumstances surrounding the crime. Supporters argue that Bennett's actions were a response to the abuse of his sister and that the punishment is disproportionate. Victoria, now an adult, has publicly supported her brother, stating that he saved her from further abuse and calling him a hero. She has also indicated that she was too young at the time to fully understand or disclose the abuse, and that her testimony was not adequately considered during the trial. Advocacy for Bennett's release has grown over the years, with petitions amassing over 150,000 signatures and public demonstrations, including a notable rally outside the governor's mansion in Richmond, Virginia. The case received national attention when it was featured on the Dr. Phil show, further highlighting the debate over his lengthy sentence. Despite these efforts, clemency has not been granted, and the case remains a point of contention regarding justice and punishment. Critics of the prosecution argue that Bennett's legal representation was inadequate, with claims that key evidence and psychological evaluations were not properly considered. A state-appointed psychologist report, which suggested that Bennett's diminished mental capacity and history of abuse was reportedly not disclosed to his defense team until after he pled guilty. This has led to questions about the fairness of the trial and whether Bennett's actions were a result of trauma-induced psychological distress. Here's my interview with Christopher Bennett.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from
Chris.
An inmate at the Virginia Department of Corrections, Pocahontas State Correction.
Hello, my name is Christopher Bennett. I'm from Virginia. I grew up in Augusta County and a little town called Craigsville I was raised in. So I am now, I've been incarcerated since 2003, July 2003. I've spent the last almost 22 years in the Western District of Virginia in basically 3 different prisons. I spent 17 years at one prison. And now I'm at a level 3 where this is the final level that I can go to. I cannot go any lower. I'm in the best situation that I can be in as far as being in prison.
So, can you recall any positive memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
Oh, yeah, I've got loads of positive memories, Used to go camping and fishing, used to, run around Craigsville with my friends and stuff. We'd be running around in the mountains or even in the house that I grew up in, we had a swimming pool, and all of the neighborhood kids would come over and play. It was so I had like quite a few good memories. Went to theme parks with my friends. The Chincoteague Islands, which is off the coast of Virginia. I used to go there with one of my friends when I was real young. Then I was probably like 7 or 8 at the time. I used to do a lot of good stuff.
What about any negative memories that stick out to you from your childhood? Can you recall any negative memories?
Oh yeah, I mean, let's see. From my earliest memory, when my mom was still living with my dad, and this was before, we were taken away by social services, and that was when I was probably 4 years old, I think. So before that, I remember my dad coming home drunk. He was bleeding out of his eye. He grabbed the .270 at the time I didn't know it was 270. But he grabbed a rifle off of the wall behind us and was like waving it around and pointing it at us and threatening to kill everybody. I remember when social services, they came and took me and my brothers. I have 4 other brothers. They came and took us from our babysitters. So I didn't know who they were. I thought we was being like kidnapped or something. So they just came up and yanked us out of our babysitter's arms and put us in separate cars and then drove off. And my mom, she come driving up the road, crying, saying how don't take her babies. We was taken off to different foster homes. Had to stay there for a little while, and then we was given back to Mom later on, and then that's when she was with Vince. That's when she had met Vince. That's my sister's dad. So, he used to take me down. He used to take me to his shop and let me work on all the cars and stuff with him and all that stuff. So those was all good memories. Let's see. Then he started being a piece of shit. He would just do little weird shit. Playing. Well, at nighttime he would come up to my bedroom, and he would come in there and he'd start first he'd just start coming up there talking to me, and then he'd start tickling me, and then eventually he started playing with my genitals. Shit like that, and then he would be sticking his finger in my mouth, just fucking nasty ass shit. So, those memories, I've got those memories, which are horrible.
And so Vince, that's the person that passed away in this case, right?
Yeah, for this crime, the crime that I'm here for, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that?
So yeah, it progressed on through. Eventually he was leaving. Eventually I would sleep with my jeans. I would sleep with my jeans on, fully clothed. I would try to have somebody staying over in my house a lot when that was after we moved out to Craigsville. See, we was living in Stanton, and we didn't have no friends that stayed over at that house. So, but when my first sister was born, we moved out to Craigsville, and that was in 93, I think, 1993. And then I would try to have either my little brother Calvin to stay in the room with me or somebody like that. But then once I started doing that, he would come in there and he would beat me with his belt. He would he was super fat, so he would take his belt off and he would hit me with it, and it would wrap around me because I was a little tiny dude. Seemingly for no reason, but eventually it would, he stopped coming up there, but I had to take the brunt of. Then I got beat all the time, so I was taught not to show any emotions by him because if I cried, he would beat me more. Does that make sense? So he would beat me until I stopped crying. Those were a few horrible memories.
So was that the extent of your childhood abuse at the hands of Vince, or did you suffer any other type of abuse as a child growing up?
Oh yeah, no, he would. As far as the sexual abuse or anything, it was mainly him following my genitals, putting his fucking fingers in my mouth. He would take and blow into my lungs, or he would make me hold my breath until I was about to pass out. He would put his hands over my face. He never took a bath, so his hands smelled like smelled like crap. So, and his breath, never brushed his teeth. It smelled horrible. Made me feel like my lungs was getting ready to pop. But then he used to tie me up. He used to hog tie me and throw me in a pool. And then I would have to get untied. You know, he couldn't come around there and get me out of the water. He was too out of shape. So he would tie me up, throw me in the pool. I would have to untie myself and climb out. And then when I'd climb out, I would try to run by him. And he would grab me again and tie me up again and throw me in there. Let's see. When he became an EMT at the rescue squad, he started using his medical supplies on me. He would take like the adult-sized tongue suppressor and shove it. He would shove it down my throat to make me gag. He thought that was funny. Or he would he would hold his hand over my mouth until I couldn't hardly breathe. And then when he did take his hand off my mouth, he would hit me with a smelling salt, which would take my breath away. So once we got a little bit older, he would lock food up in the van where we wasn't not allowed to eat. We wasn't allowed to eat that food. We didn't have any food in the house. He said that food was for the girls, which my three sisters at the time. So we ended up having to break into the van if we wanted to eat. Yeah.
So was that about the extent of the abuse that you endured as a child at the hands of Vince, or was there anybody else in your life that was abusing you at the time?
Well, at that time there was my oldest brother, actually, abused. He had abused me once also. Of course, I haven't really spoken of that too much to anyone. There's like two people who know that my oldest brother had abused me. That was in that same house while we was living with Vince. I was super young. I was probably 7 years old, maybe 8 years old. He was a few years older than me. I guess he may have been like 13, 14. So yeah, he abused me sexually. Made me perform oral sex on him. So yeah. But other than that, no. That was about the extent of the abuse there. Other than being bullied in school when I was little. I guess everybody gets bullied every now and then.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned you have quite a few siblings. I know you said you had 3 sisters and at least a couple brothers.
Four brothers and 3 sisters.
So you have 7 siblings?
Yeah, I've had 3 of my brothers have died. So I've got my oldest brother. I have no idea where he's at. Haven't spoke to him in years. And then I've got my 3 sisters. I talk to them on occasion. I talk to my youngest sister more often. She was the one that was in the house that night. Well, she was the one that was in his bed with him that night. Then I went in there and shot him. So.
Okay. Were you close with your siblings growing up?
Yeah, I was pretty close with 3 of my brothers. My youngest brother, well, it's the brother that's a year younger than me, my brother Calvin. He died when he was 10 years old. I was 11. So he died from a heart failure. So yeah, we was like best friends. He was the one that I had to sleep in the room with me, so Vince would leave me alone. Well, the first night that he noticed that I was having Calvin sleep in the room with me. That's when he come in there and just straight beat the hell out of me with his fucking belt. And then my youngest brother just died last year in a motorcycle accident. And then my older brother, Michael, he died in 2021. Him, his 6-year-old boy, and his girlfriend all died in a car accident. They ended up drowning in a lake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I was pretty close with him.
So after you got back home, after you were out of the foster system or the group home, whatever it was, what was your behavior like at home as you were growing up? Like, how did you behave at home?
I was always shy and withdrawn. I was always quiet. Stayed to myself, even in school. I didn't really I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I usually had like one friend. When I was in Stanton growing up, I had one friend named Alex that we went to, I used to stay at his house a little bit here and there. His family is the one that used to take us to Chincoteague Islands. They had like a summer house down there, and we would go down there during the summer. And then once we moved to Craigsville, I lost contact with him. And then, in Craigsville, I had like more friends, because it's a small little town, so everybody pretty much knew everybody. It was in second grade when we moved out there.
What was your behavior like in school, focusing more on your middle school and high school years? Like, how did you behave in middle school and high school?
I didn't really do a whole lot. I was actually, if I was part of a real school that was actually wanting me to pass with good grades, I would not have passed. I had terrible grades. I was missing school all the time. Sleeping in class, didn't want to do the work. I mean, I knew the work, I didn't do it. I was getting incompletes on my report card. But for some reason I was passed through. So I actually made it to the 10th grade. I never did show back up in the 10th grade, but I actually made it to the 10th grade by not doing my work. And, they do that with a lot out there in those schools. They did a lot around Craigsville. People from Craigsville, they would just pass them through school, even if they had horrible grades. Let's see, I want to say that in 6th grade, I had to go to a drug program. I had to actually visit a prison, but I got caught with Tylenol 500. It was just regular Tylenol. I got caught with that in school, so they sent me through a drug program. Not sure why. But yeah, I had to complete that. I was suspended from school for acting up in class, and the teacher, he would say some type of slick comments to me, and then I would say slick shit back to him, and then he would send me to the principal, or he would send me out into the hallway, and I would have to sit out there. Then he came to give me my hallway pass one time to go to the principal, and I held him in his classroom, wouldn't let him out because he had locked me out of the classroom. So they called the school. It was the school cop at the time. And they called him up there, and he took me home. I couldn't come back to school until until my mom took me in to have a meeting with the principal. Well, my mom had no vehicle, so pretty much didn't go back to school that year. And I still passed. I still made it to the next grade. But I didn't, like, as far as, like, getting in fights and stuff like that, I've probably been in, like, 2 school fights that I didn't even get suspended for.
Did you graduate high school?
No, I was in prison before I was able to graduate high school. I got my GED when I was at Wallace Ridge State Prison, which is Supermax. I got my GED up there. That was in 2005, I think. Where I was 18, I wasn't supposed to graduate high school until I think I was a class of 04. I was supposed to graduate, but I was in prison in 2003. So, but I made it to the 10th grade. They just never showed back up. So I quit then because I was actually I'd become homeless. I didn't have me and my family. Well, me, my mom, and my little brother EJ. We all became homeless after we was kicked out. Vince had kicked us out of the house. You know, he went and got custody. So, well, let's rewind too. When we was living with Vince, I don't know how everything went on, but you know, Mom and him, I guess, didn't see eye to eye or whatever, and she decided she was going to go to Wisconsin with us. So we went to Wisconsin. Vince kept the girls supposedly until she got up there to see if she got settled in. She didn't even have a place to live up there. We was just winging it. And this was when I was 15, I think. So we made it to Wisconsin. We ended up staying in the car for like a night or two, and then a family friend was already living up there. She allowed us to stay in her apartment until we found the house, and then we finally did. We got us a house. And once we did, Vincent said that she will not be getting, he's not going to bring my sisters up there. So during this process, he went to the court and had gotten custody, filed for custody of them. And then she decided to move back to Virginia with him. And when we did, when they granted him custody of my sisters, he had the Augusta County Sheriffs come out there and escort us out of the house. So after that, we would split up again. You know, me and my little brother ended up living with a preacher for a little while, and then my older brother Michael, he was somewhere just running around. But we ended up moving around between that time, which I think was the year 2000. We moved around about 30 sometimes in a 3-year span. Ended up living in a tent on a mountain for a little while, but my older brother, he had gotten strung out on drugs and actually came up there and stole our tents from us. So we actually had nothing to live in. So, yeah, all of that happened, which during school, you know, I was not able to stay in school because we were always moving around. And hell, we didn't even have clothes or anywhere to take a bath at. So what the hell would I go to school for, you know? So I didn't graduate then, but I did. Once I got in prison, I immediately went and got my GED and have continued to educate myself.
So did you engage in any type of criminal activity as a juvenile?
I did little mischievous shit, like I would vandalize stuff every now and then. I got a drunken public charge in Wisconsin, underage drinking, and then I had another drunken public when we went in Craigsville, and I just turned 18. I guess it was it had to have been. It was after February. So I think it was around February of 2003. I got a drunken public charge and spent one night in a drunk tank in the Augusta County Jail. But as far as like being in and out of in trouble with the law and stuff, no, I wasn't. I was not in trouble with the law. I had a bad name for my last name because of my older brothers. My older brothers were always doing crazy stuff, and even my younger brother, he was always in and out of like juvenile centers. My older brothers was in and out of jail, but no, I was never in trouble. Besides those two drunken public charges, one when I was like 14 or 15, and the other one when I was 18, and then this year. I did steal some gold spray paint from the dollar store and was huffing gold spray paint. So the guy who got me huffing, he's the one that turned me on to huffing gold spray paint. He was younger than me, so he was 17, and I was 18. So they gave me a contributing to a minor charge, which they ended up null processing it because by the time I went to court, I was in here for this charge.
So the crime you're in prison for now, right? That was when you were 18, right? You were 18 years old when you had. Okay. So before that, after turning 18, did you engage in any criminal activity prior to the case you're in prison for now?
No. Like being caught for it, or as far as like just getting high and drinking and stuff like that?
I mean, either, or anything that was like breaking the law that you might have been arrested for, or not arrested for that matter.
No, I was not. I mean, I never really got in trouble with them. I smoked weed and I partied. Every now and then I did they called it crank at the time. I think they call it meth now, but at the time it was called crank. So I would do that that was very rare on occasions I did that, but I mainly just smoked weed and drank alcohol. And huffed gold spray paint from time to time.
Were your mom and Vince married at the time of the crime, or had they been divorced by then?
They was split up at that time. They was never actually married.
Oh, they weren't married. Oh.
No, we just lived together. I guess you can call it common law because they was together for 8 or 9 years or something like that. So.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just wasn't, because it didn't really specify whether it was your mom's boyfriend.
Everybody says it was my stepdad. I guess because we was there so long. Because after Vicky was born, which is my youngest sister, after she was born, he became so crazy. It seemed like where he didn't even want my friends over at the house anymore. So,
okay.
Yeah, and then right after she was born, it wasn't long after she was born that we were kicked out of the house.
Let's talk about the incident that occurred on July 25th, 2003. Can you walk me through everything that led up to the shooting death of your mom's boyfriend, Vince McDorman, and what the aftermath was of that shooting?
Well, do you want me to start with the day?
Well, can you start with what led up to it? What possessed you to break into the house and everything like that? Can you talk about what actually led up to it, and then talk about the actual incident after that?
Well, probably a day or two before that, my sister had my oldest sister. She was 10 at the time. I would go down there and do some work around the house and stuff, so I was able to play with my sisters and out, that was the only way that I would be able to visit with them. And so they got this little place they called it the Crawdad, or the crawdad hunting place or what. So there's a little spot in the creek where they would go down to. He would take them down there, and they would swim in the creek and stuff. So after we got done playing out in the field one day, we was, out there playing basketball with them and stuff. I was getting ready to leave, and she was like, they was wanting to go down to this crawdad hunting place. And I said, well, I'll meet y'all down there. And my oldest sister, Mariana, she wanted to walk down with me. So she asked her dad, she was like, can I please walk down with him? And he was like, at first he wasn't going to let her. And then he said, okay. He's like, you can. He said, but if you if you stop or if you do anything, he said, I'm gonna bust your fucking ass. So he said he had to get the other two girls, ready to go down there. And something didn't sink in at the time. So we walk on down. We go down the road, and she starts telling me all the things that he's doing with them. She told me to promise that I never tell anybody. And so she tells me, and everything that is happening to them, some of that stuff had happened to me when I was younger. And then, of course, there was worse things that was happening to them. So I asked her, I was like, I said, so you mean to tell me that he's probably back there doing something like that with them now? And she was like, probably. And that's when I realized that they didn't need to change any clothes because they was already in their playing clothes. They was already in the clothes. She was wearing the same type of clothes they were. So there was no need to take them in the house. So she told me that once she got a little bit older, he would make her go outside in the rain or whatever and pick up trash outside, and he would keep them two inside. And then the other two, they would talk about what all they was having done to them. But so we fast forward to that night. I was riding around with my buddy Randy, and he was wanting some money. So Vince had offered me $500 to go testify against Mom in court so that she would never get custody of my sisters again. He wanted me to say that she was living with a man who had abused my sisters, which was a complete lie. She wanted me to say that she was always drunk and didn't have any place to live, which at the time he was actually living in a trailer for the first time in a while. But so I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree that I would go to court. But he pulled out this whole stack of $100 bills and stuff, flashed them at me, talking about all this can be yours if you would just testify against me. So when Randy had asked me, he was like, he said, I'm trying to find some money so that he wants to go to the beach. So I told him, I was like, well, I said, if you want, I said, he's got some money, you can go there and get it. And so it ended up being like, we're going to go there and get that money. The problem was that when I got into the house, I had actually got into the house, and while I'm in there, I had changed my mind and was getting ready to leave. And then that's when I heard my sister, my youngest sister, I heard her in there start crying. I was actually leaving out of the house when all this happened. So I turned back around. I was like, well, what the hell? So I turned back and went back down the hallway, and there's a light that kind of shines into his bedroom. Well, when I seen that, I looked into the bedroom, and I seen him over top of her with his hands in between of her legs. And that's when I snapped. I actually don't even remember. As far as like shooting, I don't even remember that. I don't remember putting a bullet in the gun. I had a bullet in my pocket, and it's a bolt-action rifle, so I did not, I don't remember any of that part. All I can remember is the rifle rising. I can remember that little bit, and then and then it was kind of like this blackness. So when I realized what I had done, I had ran out of the house, but then I turned back around and went back in there, and I checked on my little sister. She went back to sleep, and then I grabbed his checkbook and left the house. Got back in the car with Randy, and I threw him the checkbook, and I was like, here. That was the rock bottom part of my life. But, well, after that, we did go, Randy, we drove to, we went and picked up one of my friends, Charlie. We went and picked him up. And then we ended up driving to a Walmart. We tried to cash this check. There was a check already written in his checkbook. So we went to a Walmart and we tried to cash the check there. They wouldn't take it. I was under the assumption that if you spent a little bit of it, they would cash it, but they said it was too much to cash. So we had a stereo system or something that they was going to buy. That didn't work out, so Randy drove to Rockbridge County to a BB&T bank, and he cashed it through the drive-through thing where the little window does the little, that little cylinder thing that you put in there. So he cashed the check there, and then we drove to the beach. We went to the beach and spent all of that money on rides and just Then we came back. We came back from the beach and ended up getting arrested that morning, or the next morning. The following morning, I ended up getting arrested.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this was going to be like a break-in and entering / robbery, but you changed your mind last minute until you had witnessed your sister being abused, and that's what you had snapped and killed him. Like, does that sound right? Like it was supposed to be a robbery, but
it was I was heading there to get the money, but it really it ended up turning into way more than a robbery.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at your I don't know what you call it, the memorandum opinion, the procedural history, and it says that you pleaded guilty to breaking and entering with a deadly weapon with the intent to commit robbery and premeditated during the commission of a robbery. So that's why I was just curious about that.
My lawyers. They had me plead guilty because they told me, they said there's no way you would never get less than a life sentence. The only thing that you're going to do is get the death penalty. So this is my lawyers telling me this. And so then they had my mom tell me that that she didn't want to lose another son. She didn't want to have another son be killed or whatever. So, and then they're threatening me with the death penalty. So at the time, and they had me on a Seroquel, a psychotropic med. I was zombified in that courtroom that day. So I ended up signing this plea agreement for the maximum allowed sentence. They was not pushing for the death penalty. They just wanted to get the case over with because, I had admitted guilt in the interrogation room. When they interrogated me, I admitted the reason that I had shot him was the reason that I caught him molesting my youngest sister. So there was really no defense, and then my attorneys did not offer any defense. In my transcripts, you can see that when the judge asked if they had any defense for me, they had nothing. I had asked them about, an insanity plea or something like that, or a crime of passion. They said that that's only for gay lovers or lovers. That they said so my lawyers was like, you wasn't having a love affair with him, were you? And I was like, no. And they was like, well, that's only for that. That's only for people who are having an affair with each other. So I ended up signing the plea. Did not know it was for 3 consecutive life sentences. I thought it was for my public defender as an investigator, John Greco, who told me, he said it's only a 1 life sentence and you have the possibility of parole after 25 years, which under the old law, that was the case. But, I didn't know that it was going to be for 3 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. And now, like Virginia, you don't even have the death penalty. So I truly do have the maximum allowed sentence. That is no plea deal at all. It was a horrible deal. And my sisters were not, they didn't allow my sisters to come and testify for me. They said they was too young at the time. And then their grandma, their dad's mom, had custody of them at that point. And she was not allowing them to come into the courtroom.
Jack, I don't know.
So now I've had the last almost 22 years, I have been trying to prove that I'm not some psycho or anything. I've been trying to show that I can actually return to society.
Do you remember your sister's reaction initially after you had shot Vince, or was it just like a complete
she was 5 years old at the time. So I went in there. I went into the room, and I put my hand on her back. She went right on to sleep. She was. I asked her if she was all right, and she said yes. And she went on to sleep. I wished I would have just stayed there and called the cops myself. In a state of panic, so I ran out of the house. So, and then, which ended up leaving my older sister. She ended up finding him like that. But so as far as her initial reaction was, she went right back to sleep.
So how long after the shooting took place were you arrested?
I think it was 2 days. 2 days later, because we went to the beach. Basically, I think the investigators and stuff, they just waited for us to come back from the beach. I think my co-defendants, they had went to the police station that Sunday morning. I'm not sure which day I got. It was either Sunday or Monday morning. I'm not sure which day I was actually arrested. That all the days was kind of a blur. But I think it was Sunday morning at 8:30 in the morning, I think, is when I was arrested. My co-defendants was at the police station. One of them was there at 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning. They had drove to the police station as soon as we got back from Virginia Beach and gave their statement. And then after they gave their statement, that's when they came and arrested me. I was asleep in my bedroom.
So the 3 life sentences. Did you take that to trial, or was that a plea deal that you had taken, which was the 3 life sentences?
That was a plea deal that I had taken, and the judge, they sentenced me. I took the plea deal. It was December 17th. I took the plea deal, and they sentenced me the same day. The judge sentenced me. If I would, I feel like if I would have taken it to trial, I would have gotten less time. But at the time, I did not. I was ignorant to the law and did not know.
So after you were convicted and sentenced to 3 life sentences, how did you react emotionally?
I didn't really have a reaction. Because I really didn't know what I was sentenced to until I had gotten back to the jail when I seen my face on the news. So when I seen that, I was on that Seroquel. I was actually falling asleep during my court proceedings. Couldn't keep my eyes open. So I went back to the jail, and I was watching the news, and that's when they had posted me on there. And when I seen it, I was like, 3 consecutive life sentences. Did not know what consecutive meant. I didn't know anything like that. So the people that were in the jail with me, they explained it to me what that meant, and I was like, hell no. So I ended up calling my attorney, my public defender. I called him, and I told him that I was like, I don't want that sentence, so, that's a horrible sentence. And he said, well, we can appeal it, and so that's when he appealed it, that I was not satisfied with my sentence. Of course, they denied that pretty quick, and he did just the appeal part, and then once the habeas corpus came up, he was no longer my attorney, and I was in prison and had no idea about the law, so I ended up letting another inmate do my habeas corpus, and that was a mistake also. Ended up my habeas corpus was denied. Ended up getting time barred because I didn't get the proper paperwork filed in time. Being at a supermax, it's kind of hard to get all this stuff done. So I was time barred on that. So in Virginia, that's pretty much exhausted all of my remedies. So the only thing I have going right now is that I can file for a pardon every 3 years. Well, it averages out to every 6 to 7 years I can file for a pardon.
It ain't like you gonna come fucking see me. Come on, bro. I've had my motherfucking business back a damn year.
In 2018, and it was denied in 2021, and then I had to wait 3 years from the day that I was denied. So now, August of 2024 was when I was eligible to file another pardon, and it's being filed now as we speak.
What is the point in me going through the rest of this bullshit one more time?
So being that Vince was the father of your sisters, did that affect your relationship with any of them after the shooting had taken place, or any of your other family members for that matter?
No. My sisters, you could ask if we could ever get them to call you. They will tell you that I saved them, that I'm a hero to them. So, as far as did it affect my relationship, I mean, I guess it did somewhat as far as like me not being able to see them hardly ever anymore. But no, yeah, they are trying to get me out, also. So they're considered victims, I guess, so they, as victims of the crime, they are asking for me to be released so that I can be back out there with them.
So do you feel that this situation has possibly brought you closer with your sisters?
Yeah, well, I mean, over time it's starting to probably take a toll because, the only thing that I am is a voice on the other end of a phone. Because I've been away from them so long. My sisters have already had kids that are grown now. So, their lives have drifted. You know, my oldest sister, she ended up getting into drugs real bad. She's having a rough go of it, in and out of jail. Then the middle sister, she's like withdrawn from people. She don't like to have anybody around her kids. You know, she don't trust people being around her kids. And then my youngest sister, she don't trust me in general. But yeah, it's definitely, as far as if I could be back out there, yes, our relationship, it has brought our family closer together. It's not very many of us left, you know. It's just a few of us. I got my 3 sisters and my mom. That's who I have left out there. And then I've got my girlfriend who lives in Kansas and her family.
So nowadays, are you religious?
No, I don't really put much into religion. I feel like that religion is the reason for all of the wars that we're having. So, yeah. More of a spiritual guy, not a religious guy.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. I'm a little bit of the same way too. I'm not really religious, but I'm more spiritual myself.
Yeah.
Have you been diagnosed with any mental illnesses?
No, I've never actually been checked for any mental illnesses. I don't even know how you get checked for a mental illness. Is there like some type of test? You know, They gave me that Seroquel, that psychotropic med, but I didn't even see a damn psych doctor to even get put on that. I told him I couldn't sleep at night, and he gave me that. Everybody else he gave Elavil to, which was an antidepressant.
If you're released into society one day, what do you see yourself doing in life to ensure you don't end up back in prison?
Well, I would be, I've got so many skills as far as work skills. I can do anything. I can do any job that's out there as far as construction or working on vehicles. I can do restaurant stuff because I cooked. I've cooked in here for years. I was the head cook in the kitchen for years. I learned, I learned a lot of culinary skills by doing that. I ended up getting my trade in masonry. You know, I can do that. Also got it. Now I'm in a motorcycle repair class. We're learning that trade. I'm guaranteed a job when I walk out of here. My girlfriend's brother has his own business who will hire me as soon as I come out of the. If I got out tomorrow, I would have a job working with him. There is no way that I would ever do anything to come back in this place. Yeah, life's too beautiful.
Right. So, is there anything that you would like the public to know about yourself or this case?
Well, the public to know about me as far as my case, I'm still working on my case, and I'm still pushing for clemency from the governor. The governor we have right now is Governor Glenn Youngkin. It would be greatly appreciated if he would pardon me. About me, I'm still the same personality. I love the joke. I love the laugh. And ask anybody that knows me. Nothing is serious. Even serious moments are not serious anymore. But everybody can Google. If they go on my Facebook, they can get to know me even more. Go into free Christopher Bennett. There's a lot of information on there about me, all the things that I've done in here. You know, I've mentored people who have been released and have went on to lead successful lives. People who were doing life in prison and installment plans and ended up straightening up and staying out of trouble, starting families. Yeah, I'm ready to start the second part of my life. You know, a brand new life out there. So, my entire past is gone. Everything from my past has been pretty much erased. Even the houses I've lived in have been torn down. So I've got nothing but a great future ahead. You know, even now, even though I'm still in here, I've got a great life. The only thing that sucks is I'm still in prison. But other than that, you know, I've got a great life. I've got a family that loves me. I've got thousands and thousands of supporters that want to see me free, and I would like to meet them one day.
That was my interview with Christopher Bennett. If you would like to support the podcast, head on over to unforbiddentruth.org, pick up some merch like a coffee mug, a t-shirt, a tank top, a sticker pack, and much more. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.